The black journal hit the wet pavement. Marcus Ashford didn't pick it up. He just stared at it. Rain soaking through his third-hand coat. A woman stepped over it without looking. A businessman kicked it aside. Inside that journal, 27 days of observations, theories about poverty, solutions for homelessness, all written from the perspective of a man who'd been on the streets for less than a month, all wrong. Marcus's hands were shaking, not from cold, from the realization that he'd spent 28 years believing he understood how the world worked, and the last 4 weeks learning he understood nothing. This is the story of what happened next. 1 month earlier, Marcus Ashford was worth $3 billion. Not personally, not yet, but the Ashford Technologies inheritance was his the moment he turned 28. That was the deal his father made before dying. The will was explicit. Prove you can lead. Prove you understand sacrifice. Marcus thought he understood both. He'd spent 6 months preparing for this, researching homelessness, reading about poverty, designing his experiment. The plan was simple. Live on the streets for 1 year. Document everything. Prove that with the right mindset, anyone could escape poverty. Then return, write a book, launch a speaking career, and take his father's company into a new era of corporate social responsibility. Perfect plan. Except Marcus made one critical mistake. He believed understanding something intellectually was the same as understanding it in your body, in your bones, in the 3A. Terror when you realize you're completely alone. His first night on the streets, Marcus had a storage unit with $50,000 cash, a backup phone, and a plan to graduate his poverty every month. He'd hidden a safety net. By week 4, he'd learned something his research never mentioned. The streets don't teach you about poverty. They teach you about yourself. And most people don't survive what they find. But he didn't know someone was already watching him. Someone who recognized his face from magazines. Someone who'd been waiting to see how long it would take for Marcus to break. Marcus chose Seattle deliberately. Big enough to disappear. Small enough to feel manageable. Winter hadn't hit yet. September was mild, comfortable, safe. He'd parked his Tesla in long-term airport storage under a fake name, withdrew $200 in small bills. Everything else went into the storage unit across town, his emergency exit. The first rule of his experiment: immersion. No halfway measures. No staying in shelters unless absolutely necessary. Experience the streets authentically. The second rule: documentation. Every night, Marcus would find somewhere private and write observations in his journal. Track patterns. Identify solutions. This wasn't poverty tourism, it was research. The third rule: 1 year exactly. October 1st to October 1st. Then he'd emerge with data, insights, and proof that poverty was solvable with the right mindset. Marcus had spent 6 months designing these rules. He'd spent less than 6 hours learning they were useless. His first night, he slept under an overpass near Sodu. He'd read that homeless people clustered their community meant safety. He'd brought a sleeping bag from Rie, rated for 30 degrees. Technical gear, optimal warmth-to-weight ratio. At 2 a.m., someone tried to steal it while he was still inside. Marcus woke up being dragged across concrete. He held on, yelling, and the thief let go, vanished into darkness. Marcus sat there, heart hammering, realizing he'd made his first real mistake. His sleeping bag was too nice. It marked him as new, as having something worth taking. In his journal that night, Marcus wrote, "Note blend in better. Downgrade gear. Observation. Theft is crime of opportunity, driven by resource scarcity." He thought he'd identified a problem to solve. He didn't realize he'd just revealed how little he understood about fear. The next morning, Marcus walked to a day labor site he'd researched. Show up an app where people hired workers by the hour for moving, landscaping, warehouse work. He'd calculated he could make $80 to $100 a day. Enough to eat, save a little, and prove the system worked. His first job was loading boxes at a storage facility. 4 hours, $1.60, minus the $8 app fee, minus bus fare. He cleared $48. In his journal, viable income model. Scale through consistency. What he didn't write, his back hurt so badly he couldn't stand up straight. His hands had blisters, and the contractor told him he'd call if he needed him again. But Marcus could see 12 other guys standing there, all hoping for the same call. The competition wasn't for careers. It was for survival. By day 5, Marcus had rented a P.O. box for $120. His experiment required an address for apps and ID verification. He'd spent $200 of his initial cash. He'd made $180 from 3 days of labor. The math was starting to shift. He began eating at food banks, not because he had to, but because authentic experience required it. Standing in line with people who looked exhausted in ways he'd never seen. That's where he met Ray. Ray was maybe 50, weathered face, gray beard, calm eyes that seemed to see through everything. They were waiting for a church to open its lunch service, 30 people in line, all silent. Marcus noticed Ray was reading a book, not a Bible or a pulp novel. Camus. The stranger, Marcus said, didn't expect to see Camus out here. Ray looked up. Why not? I don't know. You assumed homeless people don't read philosophy? Marcus felt his face flush. No, relax, kid. Most people assume that you're not special. Something about the way Ray said it made Marcus's throat tighten. You're not special. Marcus had built his entire identity on being special. They ate together beans and rice, donated bread. Ray asked what Marcus's name was. Marcus said Mark, close enough to feel familiar, far enough to feel safe. Ray said, You're new. How can you tell? You haven't learned to disappear yet. You're still trying to be somebody. Marcus wrote that in his journal that night. Observation. Street survival requires ego dissolution. He thought it was an insight. It was a warning. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus kept running into Ray. Same food banks. Same day labor sites. Same overpass, sometimes at night. Ray never asked why Marcus was on the streets. Never pried. Just existed alongside him with a kind of steady presence that Marcus found both comforting and unsettling. Marcus started asking Ray questions. How long have you been out here? 3 years. Where'd you come from? Everywhere and nowhere. Do you want to get off the streets? That's the wrong question. What's the right question? Marcus asked. Ray looked at him. Do I want to go back to who I was before? Marcus didn't understand. He would. By week 3, Marcus's experiment was showing cracks. The math didn't work. He was making $60 to $80 on days he got work. But work wasn't every day. Sometimes Show Up had no jobs. Sometimes 12 people showed up for 3 positions. Sometimes the contractor just picked the guys he knew. Marcus tried to optimize. He arrived earlier, dressed better, smiled more. It didn't matter. The system wasn't designed to be gained by effort. His journal entries started changing. Day 18, made $40. Bus pass expired, had to walk 4 miles. Too tired to work tomorrow. Day 21, rained all day. Lost day labor opportunity. Food bank closed early. 8 gas station hot dog. Day 24, Someone stole my shoes while I was sleeping. Bought replacements at Goodwill $12. Total savings now $67. Marcus started realizing something that made him deeply uncomfortable. He was failing his own experiment, and he had an escape hatch. Every night, he'd think about the storage in it. $50,000 cash. Less than 2 miles away. He could walk there right now. Take $500. Buy decent shoes. Get a cheap motel room. Hot shower. Full meal. 8 hours of actual sleep. He never did it. Not because the experiment demanded purity, but because he was starting to feel something he'd never felt before. Shame. Shame that he'd thought this would be easy. Shame that he believed poor people just needed better mindsets. Shame that he was struggling, even with a safety net. Shame that every time he looked at Ray calm, centered, somehow more present than anyone Marcus had ever known, he realized. Ray had something Marcus didn't. Ray had let go of needing to prove anything. Marcus was still holding on. On day 27, Marcus got a full day of work. 8 hours at a warehouse. $120 minus fees. He felt triumphant. He bought a real meal. Burger, fries, soda. Sat in the restaurant like a normal person. The cashier looked at him with pity. That night, Marcus sat under the overpass and wrote in his journal, "Note, poverty is not a failure of willpower. It's a system designed to exhaust willpower until there's nothing left." It was the first true thing he'd written. The next morning, he dropped the journal in the rain. And that's when everything changed. While Marcus was learning humility the hard way, someone else was learning his real identity, and they weren't going to wait much longer to use it. Marcus bought a new journal at a dollar store, 79 cents. Spiral-bound, bright blue cover. He sat in a library-free Wi-Fi, warm air, bathrooms, and tried to rewrite his observations from memory. But the words wouldn't come. He kept thinking about the moment he'd watched that journal disappear under footsteps. How nobody stopped. How it was just another piece of trash on the sidewalk. How his entire month of insights meant nothing to anyone except him. Ray found him there. "Thought you didn't come to libraries," Marcus said. "I don't read here. I come for the people." "What do you mean?" Ray sat down. "Libraries are the last place people are allowed to exist without spending money. You learn everything you need to know about a city by watching who shows up." Marcus looked around. Homeless people at computers. Elderly folks reading newspapers. A mom with 3 kids doing homework. "They all look desperate," Marcus said. "They look human," Ray corrected. "There's a difference." Marcus wrote that down in his new journal. Ray saw it. "You write a lot." "I'm documenting things. For yourself or for other people?" The question sat between them like a stone. Marcus said, "What if it's both?" "Then you're lying to yourself," Ray said gently. "Real change doesn't get documented. It gets lived." Marcus wanted to argue, but his hand hurt from blisters. His feet hurt from bad shoes. His stomach hurt from inconsistent food. His whole body was documenting something he didn't want to admit. This was harder than he'd ever imagined. That week, October arrived. Seattle's famous rain became constant. Temperatures dropped. Marcus's sleeping bag stopped being enough. He tried to get into a shelter desk, the main downtown facility. But there was a lottery system. Literal lottery. Show up at 5 p.m. Get a ticket. Wait to see if your number was called. Marcus's number wasn't called. He stood outside in the rain, watching people walk away with nowhere to go. A woman next to him started crying. Just stood there, crying, rain and tears mixing. Marcus wanted to help. But what could he do? He had $73 to his name. No solutions. no power. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt actually helpless. That night, he went to the overpass, where Ray usually stayed. Ray had built a small camp tarp, suspended between concrete pillars. Cardboard underneath for insulation. A propane camping stove, probably stolen, Marcus thought, then hated himself for thinking it. You look like shit, Ray said. I feel like shit. Good. You're learning. Marcus sat down. The tarp kept most of the rain off. The concrete radiated cold. Ray heated up canned soup on the little stove, split it between 2 cups, handed one to Marcus. It was the best thing Marcus had ever tasted. Why do you do this? Marcus asked. Make soup? Live out here. You could. You seem smart, capable. You could get a job. An apartment. You think I'm here because I'm not trying hard enough? Marcus froze. No, I didn't mean that's exactly what you meant. Ray's voice wasn't angry, just sad. Everyone thinks that you work hard, you get ahead. American dream. Pull yourself up. Isn't that true? Ray laughed. Kid, I had 3 jobs once, 3 60 hours a week. Still couldn't afford rent in this city. You know why? Marcus shook his head. Because minimum wage hasn't changed in a decade, but rent has tripled. Because one medical emergency wipes out years of savings. Because the math doesn't work, no matter how hard you hustle. Then why don't you leave? Go somewhere cheaper? With what money? Moving costs money. First month, last month, deposit, that's $3,000 right there. Where am I getting $3,000? Marcus thought about his storage unit. $50,000 sitting there. He felt sick. I had a wife once, Ray said quietly. 2 kids. Good job, logistics manager. Made decent money. Then the company automated. Laid off 60 people in one day. I was 47. You couldn't find something else? Tried for 2 years. But I was too old for entry level and too obsolete for management. Used up our savings. Lost the house. Jenny took the kids to her sister's place in Phoenix. Told me to come when I got back on my feet. Ray stirred his soup. That was 3 years ago. Marcus's throat was tight. Do you talk to them? Sometimes. Jenny sends emails. The kids are teenagers now. They've got their own lives. I'm just a story they'll tell. Eventually, my dad used to be somebody. You're still somebody. Ray looked at him. You don't believe that. You think I'm a cautionary tale? A warning sign. You're sitting here thinking, this won't happen to me. I'm not Marcus. Everybody thinks they're different. Right up until they're not. Marcus blinked. You said Mark before. Ray smiled. I said Mark because that's what you told me. But you answer to Marcus. You did it twice yesterday. You don't even notice. The soup suddenly tasted like ash. Who are you? Marcus whispered. Someone who's been paying attention. Marcus stood up fast. Do you know who I? Sit down. Jesus. I'm not going to out you or rob you or whatever you're panicking about. Marcus didn't sit. I saw you on the cover of Seattle Business Journal 6 months ago, Ray said calmly. Marcus Ashford, 28, set to inherit Ashford Technologies. They did a whole profile. The youngest tech billionaire in the Pacific Northwest. Marcus felt his world tilting. I've known since day one, Ray continued. You walked into that food line like a tourist in a foreign country. Designer watch tan lines, teeth too white. Nobody who's actually poor looks like you did. Then, why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see if you were serious. Serious about what? About actually learning something. Most rich people who play poverty quit in 3 days. You made it almost a month. I was curious. Marcus sat down slowly. His hands were shaking. Are you going to tell anyone? Why would I? I don't know. Money? Leverage? You could Ray cut him off. This is what you people never understand. Not everything is transactional. I don't want your money. I don't care about your company. I just wanted to see if someone like you could ever actually see someone like me. I see you? No, you don't. You see a character in your story. You see a data point for your experiment. You see a moral lesson. Marcus opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it, because Ray was right. What do I do now? Marcus asked. That depends. Are you doing this because you want to learn? Or because you want to prove something? I don't know anymore. Then you're closer to honest than you've ever been. They sat in silence. Rain hammered the tarp. Finally, Ray said, you can keep coming around. I won't blow your cover. But you need to understand something. This isn't a game you win. It's a reality you survive. And some days, survival looks like giving up everything you thought made you strong. Marcus wrote that in his journal later. Then wrote underneath, I thought I was running an experiment. Ray's been running one on me. That week, everything got harder. The cold intensified. Marcus got a respiratory infection, coughing fits that left him doubled over. He couldn't work. No work meant no money. No money meant no food. He went to a free clinic, waited 4 hours, got a prescription he couldn't afford to fill. A nurse saw him staring at the paper. Pharmacy across the street has a discount program, she said quietly. $4 for generics. Tell them Sarah sent you. Marcus wanted to cry. For a stranger's kindness, for his own stupidity, thinking he understood this world. He got the pills. They helped, but the help felt different than anything he'd known. It wasn't earned. It was given. And Marcus was starting to understand that his whole life he'd believed people deserved what they got. At standing in that pharmacy, holding pills a stranger helped him access, he realized something terrifying. He didn't deserve his wealth any more than Ray deserved his poverty. It was luck, all of it. Just luck. That night, Marcus wrote, Day 43. I've been asking the wrong question. Not why are people poor, but why am I rich? And the answer is, no reason at all. Ray had kept Marcus's secret for 6 weeks, but someone else had just discovered it too. And unlike Ray, they wanted something in return. If you're still watching, you're seeing something most people refuse to. Privilege doesn't just blind you, it makes you invisible to yourself. Subscribe if you want to see where this really goes. November came with real cold. Marcus learned that temperature wasn't just a number. It was a presence, a weight, a predator that hunted you through the night. He'd bought a second sleeping bag from Goodwill, $8, ripped in 3 places, layered it over his first one, wore every piece of clothing he owned to sleep, still woke up at 3 a meter, shaking so hard his teeth chattered. Ray taught him tricks. Cardboard under the sleeping bag insulation from the ground. Newspaper stuffed in your coat trap's heat. Sleep in a ball conserves warmth. You'd think this would be in those survival guides billionaires read, Ray said. Marcus winced. Do you have to keep reminding me? Yes, because you keep forgetting who you are. I know who I am. No, you know who you were. That's not the same thing. They were at a community dinner, a church that served hot meals Tuesdays and Thursdays. Real food, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Volunteers who smiled like they weren't tired. Marcus had started volunteering himself, showing up early to help set up chairs, staying late to wash dishes. It felt like the least he could do. A woman named Carol ran the program. 65, retired teacher, endless energy. Your Mark, right? She said, handing him a dish towel. Yes, ma'am. You've got kind eyes. Don't lose that. Marcus didn't know what to say. The streets make people hard, Carl continued, scrubbing a pot. Self-protection. But hardness becomes a prison. You understand? I think so. No, you don't. But you will. She patted his arm and moved on. Marcus thought about that for days. Hardness becomes a prison. He saw it everywhere. The guy at the labor site, who never spoke to anyone, built walls so high nobody could hurt him, but nobody could help him either. The woman at the food bank who yelled at volunteers. Anger as armor. Keep people at a distance. Ray was different. Ray was open, present, vulnerable in a way that seemed insane for someone living on the streets. Aren't you scared someone will hurt you? Marcus asked one night. Every day. Then why not protect yourself? I do protect myself. But there's a difference between protection and prison. Marcus wrote that down. You write everything I say? Ray asked. Not everything. Just the things that make me uncomfortable. Ray laughed. Then you must have a very full notebook. The truth was, Marcus's notebook was becoming something different than he'd planned. It wasn't research anymore. It was confession. Day 57. Lied to a volunteer today. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay since day 3. Day 61. Saw a guy get jumped for his shoes. Everyone watched. Nobody helped, including me. What does that make me? Day 65. Ray told me most homeless people work. They just don't make enough to afford housing. I spent my whole life thinking poverty meant lazy. I hate who I was. Day 68. 3 months in. Supposed to be proving poverty is solvable. Instead, proving I'm the problem that needs solving. Marcus stopped calculating his savings. Stopped planning his escape timeline. He just existed, day by day, hour by hour, learning that survival wasn't heroic. It was exhausting. Ray started teaching him other things. Where the safe bathrooms were library, hospital lobbies, fast food places if you bought something. Which dumpsters had good food grocery stores tossed produce the day before it expired. Bakeries threw out yesterday's bread. How to spot undercover cops. How to avoid sweeps. How to know which business owners would call the police just for existing nearby. It's like a whole invisible city, Marcus said. It's not invisible. You just weren't looking. One afternoon, Ray took Marcus to a place under the I-5 overpass, an entire community of tents and tarps, maybe 40 people. This is the commons, Ray said. Technically illegal. But police leave us alone mostly. Why? Because they know if they sweep us, we just move somewhere else. At least here we're organized. Look, Ray pointed out the structure. Someone collected trash twice a day. Someone else checked on elderly folks. There was a charging station solar panel rigged to car batteries. A community board with job postings and warnings. We take care of each other, Ray said, because nobody else will. Single quotes. Marcus met people. Lisa, 42, lost her apartment when her boyfriend was arrested and she couldn't make rent alone. Cleaned for 6 months, trying to save for a deposit. James-60-7 veteran PTSD. Disability check wasn't enough for rent. Waited 2 years for housing assistance. Still waiting. Maria-30-5 fled domestic violence with 2 kids. Living in her car. Used the commons for meals and showers. Every person had a story. Every story was complex. Nobody was there because they weren't trying. That night, Marcus wrote, Day 74. I came here thinking I'd discover solutions. Instead, I discovered that people living the problem already know the solutions. They just don't have the power to implement them. The next week, Marcus got a full-time job. 3 days of work warehouse inventory. $15 hour. 24 hours total. $360 minus fees. He cleared $320. It felt like winning the lottery. He paid off the P.O. box renewal. Bought new shoes $25 at Ross. Got his jacket repaired at a community sewing program. Bought groceries, real groceries, at a discount store. For 3 days, he felt almost normal. Then the job ended. Back to day labor. Back to uncertainty. But now he had $180 saved. He could almost see a path. If he kept working, kept saving, maybe in 6 months, he'd have first month's rent. Then he'd just need last month and deposit. Then he'd need furniture, kitchen supplies, work clothes. The math spiraled. Even with steady work, which he didn't have, it would take 2 years to get into stable housing. 2 years. Marcus sat in the library, doing the calculations over and over. Every time, the answer was the same. The system was broken. "You're just figuring this out?" Ray said, sitting down next to him. I knew it intellectually. But seeing it, knowing and understanding aren't the same thing. They sat together. Marcus showed Ray his calculations. Ray looked at them and sighed. "You're forgetting something." "What?" "This assumes nothing goes wrong. No injuries. No stolen property. No surprise costs. Life doesn't work that way. So what do people do? They survive. Or they don't." The simplicity of that answer crushed Marcus. That night, he went back to the Commons. Lisa was crying. Someone had stolen everything from her tent sleeping bag, clothes, the $87 she'd saved. She sat on bare ground, sobbing. 3 months of work, she kept saying. 3 months. The community rallied. People donated extra blankets. Someone gave her a coat. James offered to share his tent until she could rebuild. Marcus gave her $40 over 20% of his savings. He didn't think about it, just gave it. Later, Ray said, "That was good. I couldn't watch her. I know." But that's the thing about actual empathy. It costs you something. Marcus thought about the $50,000 in his storage unit. He could solve everyone's problems here with a fraction of that money. But then what? He solves it once, and they're dependent on him? The white savior narrative he'd been trying to avoid? Or worse, he reveals himself, and everything he'd learned becomes tainted by the fact that he was never really in danger. "You're thinking about telling people," Ray said. "How did you—" "Because you're getting that look. The I can fix this look." "Don't? Why not?" "Because these people don't need a rich person to swoop in and save them. They need systems to change. They need housing policy reform. They need health care. They need dignity. But I could help them right now. And what happens when you leave? When your experiment ends and you go back to your life?" Marcus didn't have an answer. "That's what I thought," Ray said. November became December. Marcus had been on the streets for 3 months. He'd lost 20 pounds. His hands were permanently rough. He had a scar on his forehead from walking into a pole during a dizzy spell from not eating. He looked homeless. Not performing homeless. Actually homeless. One morning, he walked past a store window and didn't recognize his own reflection. That night, he wrote, "Day 89. I thought I was documenting poverty. I was actually documenting my own death. The person I was is gone. I don't know who's left." Ray was teaching Marcus humility, but someone else was teaching him consequences. And the lesson was about to start. Her name was Amanda Chun, investigative journalist for Seattle Times. She'd been following Marcus for 2 weeks. He didn't know it yet. She'd started with a tip anonymous email. "Marcus Ashford is living homeless in Seattle, playing poverty. Getting a story while real people suffer. Amanda almost deleted it. Rich people doing poverty tourism for content wasn't new. Usually wasn't worth the time. But Marcus Ashford was different. Ashford Technologies was worth $40 billion. The company his father built had government contracts, AI development, surveillance technology. If the heir was on the streets, it was a story. Amanda started digging. Tesla and airport storage under the name M. Ash. Storage unit rented same day. He disappeared. P.O. Box downtown. She found him in 3 days. Spent 2 weeks watching. At first, she thought it was performance art, some kind of publicity stunt, but Marcus wasn't taking photos. Wasn't posting online. His social media had been silent since September. Amanda watched him work day labor, watched him sleep under overpasses, watched him wait in food bank lines. He wasn't performing. He was actually doing it, which meant either he was genuinely trying to understand poverty, or he was building credibility for something worse, a book deal, a nonprofit that funneled money to himself, a political campaign based on I lived it. Amanda needed to know which. She approached him on December 8th. Marcus was sitting outside a library, writing in his journal. Marcus Ashford? He looked up. Took him a second to process someone using his real name. I'm Amanda Chun, Seattle Times. Can we talk? Marcus stood up fast. I don't, you've got the wrong person. You're Marcus Ashford, 28, heir to Ashford Technologies. You disappeared 3 months ago. Your family reported you missing. Police are looking for you. That last part was a lie. Amanda hadn't contacted his family yet, but Marcus didn't know that. His face went white. Please don't what? Report that you're alive? That you're playing homeless while people actually suffer? It's not like that. Then what's it like? Marcus looked around. People were staring. Can we talk somewhere private? They went to a coffee shop. Marcus ordered water. Amanda ordered coffee and pushed it across to him. Talk, she said. Marcus told her everything. The experiment, the journal, the 1-year plan. His realization that he'd been wrong about poverty. His shame. His confusion about what to do next. Amanda listened. Took notes. So you're saying you came here to prove poor people aren't trying hard enough, and instead you learned you're an asshole? Marcus flinched. That's reductive, but accurate? Yes. Amanda leaned back. What's your endgame? I don't have one anymore. Bull. Everyone has an endgame. Book deal? Speaking tour? Political career? I don't want any of that. Then what do you want? Marcus stared at his water. I want to understand how I lived 28 years without seeing any of this. Amanda studied him. He looked like shit. Genuinely. This wasn't makeup or method acting. You know this is a story either way, she said. Billionaire heir lives homeless. I write it. It runs. Your life changes. I know. You're not going to ask me not to write it? Would it matter? No. They sat in silence. Finally, Marcus said, When? When what? When are you publishing? I haven't decided. I need to verify everything. Talk to people. Build the story. What if I asked you to wait until October? Why October? That's when my year ends. I want to finish what I started. Amanda laughed. You think you're entitled to finish your little experiment? No. I'm asking for the chance to actually learn something before everything becomes a circus. And what do I get? Exclusive access. Full story. No other journalists. Amanda considered it. I shadow you. Document everything. No bullshit. Okay. And when October comes, you don't get approval on what I write. I wouldn't expect it. Amanda put her recorder on the table. Start from the beginning. They talked for 3 hours. Marcus told her about Ray, about the commons, about Lisa losing her savings, about learning the math didn't work. Amanda took notes, asked questions, pushed back. You realize this is incredibly privileged, she said. You get to experience poverty with an escape hatch. These people don't, I know, and you're using their suffering to learn empathy you should have had already. I know, so why should anyone care about your journey? Marcus looked at her directly. Because if I'm this ignorant with 3 degrees and good intentions, imagine how ignorant people are who don't even try to understand. Amanda paused her pen. That was good. She hated that it was good. I'm going to write this, she said. And it's not going to be kind. I don't want kind. I want true. Amanda left with 3 hours of recording and the story of her career. Marcus sat there for another hour, knowing he'd just changed everything. When he got back to the Commons, Ray was waiting. You look like someone who just made a huge mistake, Ray said. How did you? Because I know that look. I wore it for 6 months before I lost everything. Marcus told him about Amanda. Ray listened quietly. So she's going to expose you, Ray said. Eventually. She's waiting until October. And you trust her? I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. You could leave right now. Go to your storage unit. Disappear for real. Marcus had thought about it. Would you? I did, Ray said quietly. Marcus looked at him. What do you mean? Ray was quiet for a long time. I told you I had a family. A job. That I lost everything? Yeah. I didn't tell you I had a choice to stay. Jenny begged me to move to Phoenix with them. Her sister had space. I could have started over there. Why didn't you? Because I was ashamed. I'd built my whole identity on being the provider, a man who solved problems. And when I couldn't solve my own unemployment, I couldn't face being in that house watching her sister's husband be everything I wasn't. Ray's hands were shaking. So I told her I'd find work here first, then come. That was 3 years ago. Why haven't you gone? Because every time I think about showing up with nothing, I realize I'd rather be homeless where nobody knows me than a failure where everyone does. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. Ray, pride is a poison, Marcus. It tells you that losing everything is better than admitting you need help. And by the time you realize that's insane, you're so deep in the hole you can't see sky anymore. You could still go. Could I? Show up after 3 years? After missing birthdays and holidays and my daughter's graduation? What do I say? Sorry, I was too proud to be poor near you? They sat together in the cold. Marcus understood something then. Ray hadn't been teaching him how to survive poverty. He'd been teaching him how to survive himself. The next week was different. Marcus knew Amanda was watching, taking photos, documenting. He felt exposed in a new way. Before, he was anonymous. Another homeless guy. Invisible. Now, he was a subject, a story, a thing to be examined. He started second-guessing everything. Was he helping set up chairs because it was right, or because Amanda was watching? Was he sharing food because he cared, or because he wanted to look good? Ray noticed. You're performing again. I'm not. You are. You're worried about how you look. That's performance. But she's watching everything. So, be who you are. Let her write whatever she writes. Marcus wrote in his journal. Day 98. Ray says be authentic. But what if my authentic self is someone performing authenticity? What if I don't know the difference anymore? Amanda met with Marcus twice a week. Coffee shops, libraries, recording everything. Tell me about your father, she said during one session. Marcus tensed. Why? Because I think this whole thing is about him. It's not. He died 2 years ago. Left you an impossible inheritance. Prove you can lead. What does that even mean? Marcus was quiet. He never thought I was enough, he finally said. Smart enough, tough enough. He built an empire, and I was just the heir. The person who didn't earn it. So you came out here to earn it. I came out here to prove I understood sacrifice. And I don't understand sacrifice. I understand cosplaying it. Amanda wrote that down. You're really going to destroy me, aren't you? Marcus said. I'm going to tell the truth. If that destroys you, maybe you should be destroyed. It was the most honest thing anyone had said to him in weeks. That night, Marcus dreamed about his father. In the dream, his father was standing in the warehouse where Marcus worked day labor, watching him lift boxes. This is pathetic, his father said. I'm trying to learn you're trying to avoid. You think becoming poor makes you noble? It makes you weak. I'm not weak. Then why are you still here? Marcus woke up shaking. Ray was next to him, awake. Bad dream? My father. He always thought I was weak. Were you? I don't know anymore. Maybe. Or maybe I was just different than what he wanted. Those are the same thing to men like him, Ray said. Men who build empires. They only see two options: conquer or surrender. They don't understand that sometimes survival means adapting. Is that what you're doing? Adapting? I'm existing. That's harder than it sounds. December stretched on. Marcus hit day 100. He'd been homeless for 3 months and 10 days. He'd lost count of how many times he'd almost quit, almost gone to the storage unit, almost taken the easy way out. But something kept him going. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the people at the Commons who didn't have escape hatches. Maybe it was Ray, who'd chosen to stay even when staying destroyed him. Or maybe Marcus was finally learning what his father never understood. That strength isn't about never breaking. It's about what you do after. Marcus thought his biggest threat was Amanda's article. He was wrong. Someone else had just found his storage unit, and they wanted more than a story. The storage unit was empty. Marcus stood in the doorway, staring at nothing. No cash, no backup phone, no credit cards, no escape hatch. Just empty metal walls and the echo of his breathing. No. He checked the unit number. F to 237. Right unit. The lock was broken, cut clean through. Everything he'd saved for emergencies was gone. $50,000 cash. His entire safety net evaporated. Marcus sat down on the concrete floor and laughed. It was the laugh of someone whose brain has stopped processing reality. 4 months of telling himself he could quit any time. 4 months of knowing he was never really in danger. Now he was, actually, completely, terrifyingly in danger. The storage facility manager came by. You the one who rented this? Yes. Someone broke in? Yeah. We had a string of break-ins last month. Police report filed, but they didn't catch anyone. Can't you check security cameras? Cameras had been broken for 6 weeks. Owners waiting on parts. Marcus wanted to scream. So that's it? My stuff is just gone? Insurance claim takes 60 to 90 days. If you have renter's insurance. Marcus had rented the unit under a fake name. No insurance. He walked out, walked for miles, ended up at the Commons. Ray took one look at his face. What happened? Marcus told him. Ray was quiet for a long time. So now you know, he finally said. Know what? What it feels like when the bottom drops out. Marcus wanted to argue, but Ray was right. For 4 months, he'd been poor by choice. Now he was just poor. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the money. $50,000. Gone. He could report it to police, But then he'd have to explain why a billionaire was living homeless with 50 grand in a storage unit. The story would break immediately. He could call his family's lawyers, but same problem. He could call Amanda, but she'd write about it, and his experiment would be over. Or he could do what everyone else at the Commons did. Accept it, grieve it, move on. The next morning, Marcus went to day labor. Didn't get picked. Tried again at noon. Nothing. Tried a different site. Still nothing. He'd hit a dry spell, the thing Ray had warned him about. Sometimes work just vanishes. By day 3, Marcus had eaten through his savings. By day 5, he was actually broke. No money. No prospects. No way out. He stood in a food bank line feeling something he'd never felt before. Gratitude for free food. Not performative gratitude. Real gratitude. The kind that makes your throat tight because you know without this meal, you wouldn't eat at all. Lisa was in front of him. "You okay, Mark?" she asked. "Yeah, it's been a tough week. Tell me about it." "Lost my tent. Someone slashed it during the last sweep. The police swept the Commons 2 days ago. You missed it. They came through, told everyone to clear out, threw away people's stuff if they didn't move fast enough." Marcus felt sick. "Where's everyone staying?" "Scattered. Some went to other camps. Some are sleeping rough. It's chaos." That afternoon, Marcus went to the Commons. It was empty. Just torn tarps and abandoned belongings. Ray was sitting in the wreckage. "They took everything," he said quietly. "My books, my stove, 43 days clean clothes from the laundromat. Can you get it back?" "They threw it in the compactor. Said it was garbage." "That's your life. To them, it's all garbage." Marcus wanted to rage. Wanted to call lawyers. Wanted to use his power. Then remembered he'd voluntarily given up his power. This was the reality everyone else lived. No recourse, no lawyers, no protection, just loss. They rebuilt Ray's camp in a different spot under a different overpass. Smaller, more hidden. Marcus helped. For the first time, he worked without thinking about documentation or lessons. He just worked because Ray needed help. That night, James had a heart attack. 67 years old, clutched his chest, collapsed. Someone called 911. Ambulance took 20 minutes. James was still alive, barely. Marcus rode with him to the hospital. The EMTs let him because James was conscious enough to say Marcus was family. At the hospital, Marcus sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. A doctor finally came out. He's stable, but he'll need surgery. Triple bypass. How much? With no insurance? Around $200,000. Marcus felt dizzy. He's a veteran. Doesn't he have VA covers some? He'll still owe around 60 grand. Can he pay that? The doctor looked at Marcus like he was insane. Does he look like he can pay 60 grand? James ended up signing forms for charity care. Months of paperwork. Months of uncertainty. He'd live, but he'd be drowning in debt. Marcus sat with him after the surgery. "I'm sorry," James said weakly. "Why are you apologizing? For being expensive?" Marcus's throat closed up. "James, you don't have to. I know what I cost. ER visit, ambulance, surgery. I just added another anchor around my neck. You had a heart attack. That's not your fault. Doesn't matter. Fault doesn't pay bills." Marcus went back to the Commons that night and cried. Not polite crying, not sniffling, sobbing, the kind that shakes your whole body. Ray sat with him. Didn't say anything, just sat. When Marcus finally stopped, Ray said, "Now you understand?" "Understand what?" "Why people give up. It's not weakness. It's math. The world keeps taking pieces of you until there's nothing left to give. Marcus wiped his face. How do you not give up? Who says I haven't? You're still here. Breathing isn't the same as living. I breathe because my body hasn't figured out how to stop yet. But I gave up on living years ago. The honesty of it crushed Marcus. Then why help people? Marcus asked. Why teach me? Why build community? Ray looked at him. Because giving up on myself doesn't mean I give up on everyone else. Marcus wrote that in his journal. Then wrote, Day 113. I thought homelessness was about poverty. It's not. It's about being slowly erased. Every day, society takes another piece of your humanity until you're invisible. And the cruelest part? You start believing you deserve it. Amanda called him the next day. She'd heard about the storage unit through a contact at the facility. So you're broke now, she said. How did you? I'm a journalist. I have sources. Are you okay? Marcus laughed. Define okay. Do you need money? I can, no. Marcus, there's no shame in. Yes, there is. That's the whole point. There's shame in every single part of this. Amanda was quiet. What are you going to do? What everyone else does. Survive another day. He hung up. That week, Marcus got a job. 3 days of warehouse work. Real work, the kind that pays real money. He made $400. Gave $100 to Ray for helping him when he had nothing. Gave $100 to Lisa to replace her tent. Gave $50 to the community fund for James's medical costs. Kept $150. Ray said, You gave away 70% of your money. Is that stupid? It's the least stupid thing you've done since you got here. Marcus started noticing other things. The way community worked when systems failed. Maria watched people's belongings while they went to job interviews. Lisa taught people how to navigate food banks and social services. James, even recovering from surgery, fixed people's bikes and shopping carts. Ray taught everyone philosophy. Actual philosophy. Camus, Sartre, Marcus Aurelius. Why philosophy? Marcus asked. Because when you have nothing, ideas are the only things that can't be taken from you. Marcus wrote that down. He wrote down everything now, not as data, as witness. To remember that these people existed, that they mattered, that they weren't statistics or cautionary tales or moral lessons. They were just humans trying to survive a world that didn't care if they did. On day 120, Marcus found a full-time job, dishwasher at a restaurant, $16 an hour, 40 hours a week guaranteed. It was the first stability he'd had since September. He calculated, after taxes, $500 a week, $2,000 per month. Rent for a studio in Seattle, $1,400 minimum. First, last, deposit, $4,200 up front. 21 weeks of saving if nothing went wrong. But things always went wrong. Marcus worked the job for 3 weeks. Made $1,500. Spent $300 on food, $100 on bus passes, $50 on phone minutes at the P.O. box, $40 on laundromat, $200 on a storage locker for his stuff so it wouldn't get stolen. Saved $810. Then got fired. Why? Marcus asked the manager. You're too slow. And you smell. Marcus walked out, face burning. He'd been showering at the community center twice a week, washing his clothes regularly, wearing deodorant. But the manager was right. He smelled like someone who slept outside, like someone who couldn't fully wash the streets off, like someone who was homeless. That night, Marcus sat with his journal, stared at the page. Couldn't write. Ray found him. Talk to me. I got fired for smelling poor. Welcome to the club. How do you do this? How do you wake up every day knowing the world sees you as garbage? I don't, Ray said simply. I wake up and see myself as human. What the world thinks is the world's problem, but it affects you. Of course it does. But if I let the world decide my worth, I'd have been dead years ago. So I decide, every morning, I'm human. I matter. Even if nobody else believes it. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. I don't know how to do that, he whispered. You're learning. It just hurts. That week, everything fell apart. His P.O. box expired. He couldn't afford renewal. His phone minutes ran out. No way to get work calls. The restaurant where he'd been eating cheap meals raised prices. The community center where he showered closed for renovations. No showers for 3 weeks. Marcus felt himself spiraling. Not just financially, mentally. He started having panic attacks. Middle of the night. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The walls were closing in. On day 131, Marcus walked to his storage unit, the one where he'd lost everything, just stood outside, thinking about how easy it would be to call his family. End this. Go back to being Marcus Ashford, billionaire heir. Leave this all behind. Ray appeared next to him. You thinking about quitting? How did you? Because I've stood outside this building 30 times thinking the same thing. Marcus looked at him. Why are you here? My wife sent an email. She's getting married to her sister's husband's brother. Nice guy, apparently. Kids call him Dad now. Ray's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. I'm sorry, Marcus said. Don't be. She deserves happiness. Kids deserve stability. I'm just the ghost they used to know. You could still go back. No, I can't, and neither can you. Why not? Because we both know now. Once you see how the machine works, you can't unsee it. You go back to your mansion, you'll just be a rich person who knows poor people exist. That's not transformation. That's tourism. Then what's the point? The point is you stay broken. You let it change you. You become someone who can't go back, because going back would be betraying everything you learned. Marcus felt tears on his face. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. Nobody is. That's why most people quit. You're not special, Marcus. You're just stubborn enough to be stupid. They stood together in the cold. Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to quit, not because he was strong, but because quitting would mean Ray was right, that people like Marcus couldn't really change. And Marcus refused to prove Ray right. That night, he wrote, Day 131. Rock bottom isn't a place. It's a choice. You either drown or you learn to breathe underwater. I'm choosing to breathe. Marcus was learning to survive without a net. But Amanda was learning something too, that this story was bigger than one rich person's journey. And the article she was planning would change everything. January came with snow. Marcus had never been cold like this. The kind of cold that lives in your bones. That makes you understand why people die from exposure. Ray taught him how to survive it. Layers, movement, finding warm places during the day, libraries, hospitals, shopping malls. The community rebuilt, smaller, more scattered, but still there. James recovered enough to return. Lisa found a job part-time, minimum wage, but something. Maria's ex-boyfriend found her, beat her, broke her arm. She showed up at the Commons crying, cradling her arm. The community called an ambulance, raised money for her to disappear to a different city. 3 days later, she was gone. Marcus never saw her again. That's how it worked on the streets. People appeared, people vanished. You learned not to get attached, but Marcus was already attached. On day 145, Amanda showed him a draft of her article. The headline, Billionaire, Heir's Homeless Experiment, Privilege, Performance, and the Poverty Industry. Marcus read it in a coffee shop. Amanda bought him coffee and a sandwich. The article was brutal. Not mean, just honest. It detailed everything. His naivety, his privilege, his storage unit, his mistakes. But it also detailed his transformation. The real poverty he'd experienced after losing his safety net. The people he'd met. The conclusion: Marcus Ashford isn't a hero. He's a cautionary tale about how deeply our society has failed when someone needs to lose everything to learn basic empathy. The real story isn't his journey. It's the people he met who never had the choice to leave. Marcus set the paper down. "It's good," he said quietly. "You're not angry?" "Why would I be angry? It's true." Amanda studied him. "You've changed. Have I? Or did I just finally see who I always was?" She didn't have an answer. "When are you publishing?" Marcus asked. "March 1st. That gives you 2 more months to finish your year." "Why are you giving me that?" "Because I think the ending matters. And I want to see if you actually make it." Marcus laughed. "What if I don't?" "Then I write a different ending." They sat together. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Sure. Why does this story matter to you?" Amanda was quiet for a long time. "My dad was homeless when I was 12, she finally said. "Lost his job, lost our apartment. We lived in a car for 8 months. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Everyone treated us like we were invisible, like we'd done something wrong, like poverty was a moral failure. But my dad worked 3 jobs before he lost everything. He just got sick, medical bills, couldn't recover. What happened? We got lucky. A social worker helped us get into housing. Dad got disability. We survived. But I never forgot how people looked at us. Like we weren't human anymore." "Is that why you became a journalist?" "I became a journalist to make sure people like my dad get seen. That's why your story matters. Not because of you, but because of everyone you're finally bothering to notice." Marcus understood then. This was never about him. It was about bearing witness. The next week, Marcus got another job. Coffee shop. $15 an hour. 25 hours a week. A manager was kind, an older woman named Patricia, who'd been homeless herself once. "I can tell," she said during the interview. "Tell what?" "That you've actually been out there. Most people lie on applications, say they have addresses. You wrote P.O. Box. That's honest." Marcus got emotional. "I lost my P.O. Box. I was going to lie." "Don't. Lying means you're ashamed. You got nothing to be ashamed of." He started the next day. The work was exhausting. Early mornings, rude customers, endless cleaning. But it was stable. Marcus started saving again. $300 week after expenses. Slowly rebuilding. Ray came into the coffee shop sometimes. Patricia would give him free coffee. "She knows who you are," Ray said one day. "What do you mean?" "She knows you're Marcus Ashford. Recognized you from photos. Asked me about it." Single quotes. Marcus froze. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you're trying to learn something most people never bother to learn." "And?" She said, "Good. We need more people willing to be uncomfortable." Marcus felt relief wash over him. Not everyone would see this as performance. Some people would see it as penance. February arrived. Marcus had been homeless for 5 months. He'd saved $1,200. Still nowhere near enough for housing, but progress. He'd lost 35 pounds, gained scars, learned skills he never wanted. How to tell which cops would harass you and which would leave you alone. How to sleep light enough to wake up if something was wrong. How to ration food so hunger didn't become emergency. How to keep walking when your body screamed to stop. He'd also learned things he didn't expect. That community could exist without money. That people shared because sharing was survival. That dignity wasn't something you earned. It was something you claimed. That his father had been wrong about everything. One night, Marcus and Ray sat under the overpass. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Always. Do you regret it? Not going to Phoenix?" Ray thought for a long time. "Every day," he said finally. "But regret doesn't change anything. It just takes up space where life could be. So what do you do with it?" "I forgive myself. Every morning. Some mornings it works. Most mornings it doesn't. But I keep trying." Marcus wrote that down. "You're still documenting," Ray observed. "Not documenting. Remembering. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Documentation is for other people. Remembering is for me." Ray smiled. "You're learning." On day 189, Marcus received a letter. The coffee shop held mail for employees. Patricia handed it to him. It was from his family's lawyer. The probate period was ending. Marcus's inheritance was available. He needed to claim it by March 15th, or it would go to his father's second choice, his uncle, who'd already begun making moves to take control of Ashford Technologies. March 15th was 2 weeks before his one-year mark. Marcus showed Ray the letter. "What are you going to do?" Ray asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Marcus looked at him. "What would you do?" "I can't answer that. This is your choice. But if you were me, I'm not you. I never had billions to inherit. I never had the power to change systems. You do. The experiment isn't finished. The experiment is over. It ended the day you lost your safety net. Everything since then has been real life. The question is, what are you going to do with what you learned?" Marcus sat with that question for 3 days. On day 192, he made a decision. He called the lawyer, claimed the inheritance, ended his homeless year 2 weeks early. The money hit his accounts on February 28th, $3.2 billion. Marcus stared at the number on his phone. It felt obscene. That night, he met Amanda for the last interview. "Why did you quit early?" she asked. "Because finishing the year would be about my ego, proving I could do it. But this was never about what I could do. It was about seeing what everyone else has to do. And I saw it. Staying longer doesn't make me more enlightened. It just makes me a rich person playing poor for 2 more weeks." Amanda nodded. "What happens now?" "Now I figure out what the hell to do with this money." "Do you have a plan?" "The opposite of a plan. A commitment." He showed her a document. A legal framework he'd been working on with his lawyer. Ashford Housing Initiative, $1 billion. Permanent supportive housing. No means testing. No strings. Just housing. Amanda read it. Her eyes widened. "This is real?" "It's real. This would house thousands of people. It's a start." "Why housing?" "Because I learned the hard way you can't solve anything when you're exhausted from survival. Housing isn't the end. It's the beginning." Amanda set down the document. "Can I ask you one more question?" "Sure. Do you think you earned the right to do this? After 5 months, do you think you understand poverty?" Marcus thought carefully. "No," he said finally. 5 months doesn't make me an expert. It makes me slightly less ignorant. But I don't need to be an expert. I just need to listen to the people who are like Ray. Like Lisa, like James, like everyone I met who's been living this while I was playing it." Amanda smiled. "That's the first truly humble thing you've said. Don't give me credit. Humility isn't something you decide. It's something that gets beaten into you until you stop resisting." She recorded that. The article published March 1st. It went viral immediately. Millions of views. Thousands of comments, media requests, talk show offers. Marcus ignored all of it. He had work to do. On March 5th, he held a press conference, announced the housing initiative, announced he'd be hiring people with lived experience of homelessness to run it, announced that he'd be taking a salary of $45,000 a year, the median income in Seattle, and putting the rest into the program. The press asked if this was penance. Marcus said, "It's not penance. It's payback. I got lucky, born into wealth, born with opportunities. This money was never mine to keep." They asked if he regretted the experiment. Every day. But regret without action is just guilt. So I'm acting. They asked about Ray. Marcus paused. Ray taught me that dignity isn't given. It's inherent. Everything I'm doing now is because Ray refused to let me perform poverty. He demanded I actually see it. I owe him everything. After the press conference, Marcus went to the Commons. Ray was there, watching the news on someone's phone. "You made me famous," Ray said dryly. "I'm sorry." "I can. I'm kidding. It's fine. Though my daughter called. Saw your press conference. Wants to meet for coffee." Marcus felt his heart jump. "Ray, it's terrifying. I haven't seen her in 3 years. What do I say? The truth, that you messed up, that you're sorry, that you love her, and if she can't forgive me, then you forgive yourself anyway. Because forgiveness isn't about deserving it. It's about letting go of the weight." Ray looked at him. "When did you get wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just repeating what you taught me." They sat together. "Are you going to get housing?" Marcus asked. "Through your program? Or anywhere else? I can help. I know you can." "I'm thinking about it." "What's holding you back?" Ray was quiet. "Fear," he finally said. "Fear that if I get housing, if I get stable, I'll just lose it again. And I don't think I can survive losing everything twice." "So you'd rather stay homeless?" "I'd rather stay in a situation I know than risk a situation I don't." Marcus understood that. Risk aversion, the trauma of loss making you afraid to try again. "What if we did it together?" Marcus said. "What do you mean?" "I'm buying a building, 30 units. Permanent supportive housing. First residents move in June 1st. You could be one of them. And if something goes wrong, I'm right there. You're not alone in it." Ray's eyes were wet. "You do that? You taught me how to survive. Let me teach you how to rebuild." Ray nodded slowly. They shook hands. Over the next 3 months, Marcus worked harder than he'd ever worked. Hired staff, found a building, renovated it with community input, created programs for job training, healthcare, counseling. Lisa became the community coordinator. James became the maintenance supervisor. People Marcus had met on the streets became the people running the program, not as charity cases, as experts. On June 1st, 30 people moved into stable housing. Ray's apartment was on the 3rd floor, 1 bedroom, full kitchen, private bathroom. Marcus helped him move in. Ray didn't have much. A few bags of clothes, his books, his camping stove, which he insisted on keeping. "Why keep it?" Marcus asked. "Because it reminds me where I came from, and that I survived." They stood in Ray's apartment. Real walls, real heat, real safety. Ray sat on the couch-donated furniture, but comfortable. "This doesn't feel real," he said. "It's real. What if I mess it up? Then we figure it out together. That's the point. This isn't charity. It's community." Ray started crying. Not sad crying, release crying. 3 years of carrying weight he could finally set down. Marcus sat with him, didn't say anything, just present. When Ray stopped, he said, Thank you. Don't thank me. You taught me everything. I taught you how to be homeless. No, you taught me how to be human. That night, Marcus went back to his apartment. He'd bought a modest 2-bedroom in Capitol Hill. Nothing extravagant, but comfortable. He sat on his couch and felt the weight of the day, of the year, of everything. His phone buzzed. Amanda, great news coverage today. The housing initiative is trending. How do you feel? Marcus typed back, exhausted, hopeful, still figuring it out. Amanda, that's honest. Can I ask one last question for my follow-up piece? Marcus, sure. Amanda, if you could talk to the Marcus from September, what would you tell him? Marcus thought for a long time, finally typed, you don't know anything, and that's okay. Just shut up and listen. Amanda, perfect. Thank you for letting me tell this story. Marcus, thank you for telling it right. He set his phone down, looked out the window at Seattle. Somewhere out there, people were still sleeping outside, still struggling, still invisible. But tonight, 30 people weren't. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Marcus opened his journal, the blue one he'd bought after losing the first, flipped to the last page, wrote one final entry. Day 274. I thought this experiment would teach me about poverty. Instead, it taught me about power, how fragile it is, how arbitrary, how meaningless without purpose. I don't have answers. I don't have solutions. I just have a commitment to listen more than I speak, to learn more than I know, to give more than I keep. Ray said once that you can't understand suffering by performing it. You have to surrender to it. I didn't surrender to poverty. I just glimpsed it. But that glimpse changed everything. I am not redeemed. Redemption isn't something you earn in a year, but I am changed. And maybe that's enough. 6 months later, the housing program had expanded to 3 buildings. 90 people housed. Marcus still worked the coffee shop 1 day a week. Patricia insisted. Keep you grounded, she said. Ray reconnected with his daughter. They met for coffee once a month, slowly rebuilding. Lisa got promoted to regional coordinator, managing 5 housing sites across Washington. James became a volunteer, EMT, teaching homeless communities basic first aid. Maria was in Montana, safe, working, healing. Amanda won a Pulitzer for her series on poverty and privilege. Marcus gave a TED Talk called Poverty I Bought and the Poverty That Bought Me. It ended with this. I spent my whole life believing I understood how the world worked. That success was merit. That poverty was failure. I was wrong about everything. The real poverty isn't money. It's empathy. The inability to see humans who are suffering right in front of you. I got lucky. I was born rich. I had the chance to learn. Most people don't get that chance. So here's my ask. You don't need to live homeless to care about homelessness. You just need to stop looking away. See people. Listen to people. Believe people when they tell you the system is broken. Then use whatever power you have to fix it. Not as charity, as justice. Because nobody deserves to be invisible. Everybody deserves to be seen. The talk ended. The audience stood, but Marcus wasn't thinking about applause. He was thinking about Ray, about Lisa, about James, about all the people still sleeping outside tonight, still fighting, still surviving, still waiting to be seen.